at it and see what we have.
I support a constitutional amendment, and the reason why I'm saying I support a constitutional amendment, I want government out of education. It belongs in the hands of local control. The state is responsible under the Constitution to pay for help, pay for education. But all the extras and everything that goes around the state, that's the people of that town and city's responsibility. If we want extras in the school, then they vote to pay for them. We've got to get a handle on this. The money should follow the child in the school, in every school. We must take care of the special needs, the issues that are going on in our state, and it's not just here in Londonderry, it's everywhere. I think on the education funding should be fair across the board. Londonderry did the right thing when we took NH Cafe, when we went to court, because the town of Londonderry got the back end of the stick on this here. And if you take a look at what's going on now with the Gatz's farm, Londonderry lost $1.7 million. Derry lost $7.2 million. We must fix this where it's fair across the board.
My personal opinion is, and it's a big problem, and it's an ongoing problem. It's been going on for a long time. I think it's time to consider a statewide sales tax. That tax would have to be earmarked specifically for education to cities and towns, to help the school districts, to give us some property tax relief. And it would have to be earmarked for education, not the football team, not the band, but actually the nuts and bolts of keeping the building afloat and paying for the staff for education.
I think the main thing that we have to do on the education funding issue is, I believe it was 3 years ago, a formula was passed that is completely detrimental to Londonderry and Auburn and some of the other towns in this area. What we have to do is go back, take a look at that formula, come up with a formula that is going to be fair to every community, not just communities of Manchester and Nashua. And this current formula is also going to create a number of donor towns, and that's unacceptable. So the first thing we have to do is to redo the formula so that every town and every city gets treated fairly and every child gets treated fairly.
The issue of education is one of my biggest priorities. My mother was a teacher, my wife is a teacher. I plan on having children, and I look at what we need to do to improve their education and make sure they have opportunities for a good future. The current decrease in education funding in Londonderry, approximately $1.7 million, is extremely dramatic. It is going to hurt our children exponentially. We need to change that. I do not support the current funding model. I do want to look at it while up in Concord and work with both Democrats and Republicans to find out how we can make sure our schools and our children do not suffer. Specifically how, I'm not 100% sure. But I intend to look at every possibility when up in Concord. And I will make sure that the education of our children is a top priority.
I think they should hold the line. In other words, we had a bill last year to hold all the cities and towns harmless. And that means so that they'd at least get as much money as they got the year before and have gotten in the past. And the bill was defeated. But I think that once we've made the promise and made the commitment, that we have to at least fund what we have in the past. I also think that the funding should be based on a per pupil situation, and not with all the crazy formulas that we come up with, so that cities or towns that have poorer students or students that speaks English as a second language should get more money. It should be just a child is entitled to so much money for their education, and I think if we can hold that and not cut anything, we'll be doing really well.
This is a real messy issue ever since the courts got involved, because again, as I said in my opening remarks, the rules keep changing for the communities. The money we spend per child is $8,000 to $9,000 with no guaranteed outcome of any result. I think what we probably would need to look at, if it's a possibility, if we could, we have X number of students and X number of dollars. We should just assign, the money should follow the student, in my opinion. So Londonderry, at the end of the school year, submits to the state, I have 1,000 students, and whatever we determine the cost of an education to be, multiply it by the dollars times the number of students, and that's the check that should be given to the students. I think we ought to eliminate all this buying lunches and breakfasts and babysitting and all the other things that really have nothing to do with the education. Leave that to the control of the parents, and let the towns just stick to the issue of education.
Well, we've got to go back and look at the formula. The formula is not right for adequate education. It's funding a great deal of things it shouldn't be funding, and it's going to be decreasing Londonderry significantly if we don't do something fast. Particularly, we have our catastrophic aid, our handicapped students, and also our learning disability kids. And that money comes to the town only once a year, usually January 1st. So that's going to be the first line of attack that I'm going to do, filing a bill that asks us to reinstate those things that were cut out in the last minute of the last session. The second thing, of course, is to, right now, we do have, it's a collar program, which allows for any losses to be mediated, and so none of the towns experience a decrease in their funding for an additional year. That'll go off after this year. So we do have this session to re-examine the entire funding program, and I hope we do that. I'm on the Education Committee. I hope to continue there. On the House Education will be an excellent position for me to be able to earmark those things that'll help Londonderry get back their monies.
I look at how education started. It started with locals getting together and wanting their children to be taught. So they hired a teacher. They looked back into their reputation of what was going to be taught, and there was a lot of power at the local level. Right now, it has gotten right out of hand. I believe even though we're spending more money, it's not working out very well for the student. I believe that we should have, the government should get completely out of running education and leave it to, and run it as a free enterprise system where a parent can call a school up and say, what are you teaching? What's your curriculum? And then make choices of where they would take their child. And so there's a lot of incentive for teachers to be the best they can, not because they have, it's a given that they have a job, and no matter what they do, they're going to be protected by the unions.
The most important issue facing the state of New Hampshire, I would think right now, is our deficit. And depending on what experts you talk to, we have a deficit anywhere from $400 to $800 million deficit coming up. We've got people right now, the governor and everyone else, with smoke and mirrors on the budget. They've taken money, it's like mortgaging your home, borrowing money, and then put it in your savings account and then brag, oh, I got a surplus. Well, that's not what's happening here. We bonded $25 million, two bonds of $40 million each, of $80 million. We had the New Hampshire College, University of New Hampshire bond $10 million to offset and balance our budget. We're paying operational expenses. We're stopping schools from being built because of what's going on with the money, because of the bloated revenue expenditures that have gone on in this state. We've got to tackle this here, and some people are not going to be happy when we do some cutting, because there's no sacred cows on this budget here on trying to protect. Our number one priority should be our education in this budget. Everything else is second.
Well, the state of New Hampshire, I think, is in pretty good shape right now compared to other states. I've been looking that over a little bit, and with our low unemployment rate, I grew up in Northwest Ohio. I have friends out there that I keep in touch with. The unemployment rate out there in some counties is over 13%. So considering we're somewhere around 5.6%. We're in pretty good shape. I like the way things have been going in the state. I think our governor has done a good job. I think the legislature has done a good job recently. There are always going to be issues, and they're always going to need to be fixed. I'm new to this. I've never sat in on a legislative session up there. So if you're looking for specifics, I don't really have any specifics because I haven't been up there.
The most important issue facing the state of New Hampshire is the state budget. And until we get the state budget under control, we're not going to bring the jobs into this state and bring the businesses into this state that we need to create jobs. So until the spending problem is cured, until we stop putting new taxes on businesses, until a number of other things happen as far as rules and regulations go that are being imposed on businesses of this state, the economy is not going to grow. Businesses are afraid to hire at this point because they don't know how much taxes they're going to be incurred because of the excessive spending in Concord, and a lot of it's being brought back onto the business community. This has to stop. And if we stop that, if we stop the excessive spending and stop raising taxes, businesses will come to the state and businesses will start hiring again, and we'll drop our unemployment rate.
The most important issue facing this state is jobs and the economy. Our families are hurt, we're suffering, and we need to make sure that bringing jobs and bringing revenue into this state is our #1 priority. I believe the biggest difficulty that the legislature faced and the biggest mistake that our legislature made in this past session was not approving casino gambling in New Hampshire. I believe that will bring the jobs that we need. I believe it'll bring revenue specifically that will help lower our local tax burdens and really make our families feel a little bit of ease. Everyone's concerned with how they're going to pay their bills and their mortgage. And anything that we can do to help that, we must. Too much revenue is going into other states from casino gambling, and we need to fix that.
If you've read the papers lately, they're saying that in 2010, they had a $70 million surplus. But the $70 million surplus comes from money that they transfer from the 2011 budget into the 2010 budget. Everything up there is smoke and mirrors. When they say that the budget's balanced, they assume a certain level of revenues. And I know this past April we were 15% below on revenues. The other thing they've done is every year we fund the University of New Hampshire $100 or $125 million. And this year they gave them the $125 million. I don't know if that's, I don't remember if that's the exact number, but they gave them the money. And then the university gave us back $40 million. And then we bonded the $40 million. So we're not only paying one credit card with another credit card, but we're borrowing the money so that it's going to come due for the next 15 or 20 years. And we've done that with several other things. School building aid always was paid out of operating expenses. And school building aid is now bonded for so that it comes due later years. It makes the budget look balanced, but really it's not, because you've just stretched it out to the future budgets and you've avoided paying your obligations.
Spending